Greetings Exiles, Lexu here with my Twister Amazon leveling guide for Path of Exile 2. This is currently the best League starter build I found to level a new Huntress character through the campaign, and it's completely viable in solo self-found mode. The Twister build is effective due to its impressive projectile count, which can travel multiple screens away from the character or bounce off terrain to repeatedly hit a single target. Multiple skills are utilized to increase the projectile count and damage of Twister to destroy all enemies in sight and even melt bosses. The downside is the lengthy skill rotation involving 6 button presses to deal maximum damage. However, with proper gearing, you only need to execute the skill rotation every few screens to clear enemies. In this video, I'll first explain the build mechanics so you can understand how the build functions. Then I'll break down the skill rotation to play the build. The rest of the video covers the build setup, including skill gems, passive skill tree, and gear. Keep watching until the end of the video for bonus gameplay footage. There are some important build mechanics you should know to play the Twister Huntress. Twister always pierces enemies and can bounce off terrain to hit an enemy multiple times. It can also consume whirlwinds to create an additional Twister and deal 80% more damage per whirlwind stage. The whirlwind is created by Whirling Slash, cast up to 3 times to reach the 3 maximum stages. When firing one Twister into a stage 3 whirlwind, 4 total Twisters are created, each buffed to deal 240% more damage. These additional Twisters increase single target damage, as more projectiles bouncing off terrain can return to hit a target again. The starting projectile count can be modified by Barrage to repeat a cast of Twister at least 2 times. The initial projectile is repeated by Barrage, and then they're all multiplied by the stage 3 Whirlwind, resulting in 12 total projectiles. Barrage can provide more repeats with Frenzy charges, which can also be calculated in a formula. 3 Frenzy charges consumed by Barrage would result in 24 projectiles. Another method for increasing projectile count is the Salvo support gem. Salvo grants up to 6 additional projectiles, although my testing has found that these don't get multiplied by Whirlwind. Firing a fully charged Salvo Twister into a stage 3 Whirlwind results in 10 total projectiles. This confirms that the 6 Salvo projectiles don't get multiplied by the Whirlwind. All the Twisters receive a visual upgrade that makes them less transparent after consuming a Whirlwind, so the Salvo projectiles should still be buffed to deal 240% more damage. Now we need to test the interaction between Barrage and Salvo. Casting Twister with both buffs active creates 21 projectiles. This test shows that the extra projectiles from Salvo snapshot for all the Barrage repeats, much like the initial projectile. The initial projectile and Salvo projectiles create 7, and then they all get multiplied by Barrage repeats for 21 total. Now that we've figured out all the interactions, a formula can be generated to combine them together. Without Frenzy charges, casting Twister with Barrage and Salvo into a level 3 Whirlwind creates 30 projectiles. The Barrage multiplier is applied to the initial projectile and the Salvo projectiles, while the stage 3 Whirlwind only multiplies the initial projectile and their repeats. The formula can be used to determine that consuming 3 Frenzy charges doubles the projectile count to 60. The final mechanic for Twisters is their benefit from passing over elemental ground surfaces or consuming an elemental whirlwind to gain 50% extra damage of the corresponding type. Frostbolt leaves a trail of chilled ground and creates cold whirlwinds when they come into contact. Cold whirlwinds gain 50% extra damage as cold for increased damage output, while also applying chill and freeze to enemies. Now that we've covered all the skill interactions, let's quickly break down the skill rotation. Barrage can be activated at any time before casting Twister, since the buff is only consumed by the projectile skill. I prefer to cast Barrage at the beginning of the rotation as soon as enemies appear on the screen. Cast Frostbolt to create chilled ground for cold whirlwinds. Then follow up by casting Whirling Slash 3 times on the chilled ground to create a stage 3 whirlwind. Finally, cast Twister while still standing in the whirlwind to consume it. The chilled ground lasts for at least 4 seconds, so you can continue to repeat 3 whirling slashes and Twister while it remains. Let's cover the skill gem setup for the Twister Amazon. For each skill in this leveling guide, I'll show up to 4 support gems and list them in order of crafting priority. Twister is the main damage dealing skill. Increasing projectile speed or skill effect duration allows twisters to travel further before dissipating, which means they can hit more times from bouncing around. You can consider these stats to essentially be damage multipliers in this build, so acceleration and persistence are the first 2 supports. Salvo is a level 3 support gem that provides up to 6 additional projectiles, which snapshot for barrage repeats. You can use retreat in the 3rd socket until you get a level 3 uncut support gem to craft Salvo. Whirling Slash doesn't deal much damage on its own, but creates whirlwinds for twisters to consume. To reduce mana consumption, you can keep Whirling Blades at a lower skill level. Martial Tempo speeds up the skill rotation. Rage and Punch Through increase damage for Twister. Frostbolt is another part of the skill combo that creates Chilled Ground to grant twisters 50% extra cold damage. Keep Frostbolt at level 3, as additional levels will increase its intelligence requirement. Other supports are utility to increase cast speed, slow magnitude, freeze buildup, and reduce movement speed penalty. Barrage is a buff activated to repeat a cast of Twister at least 2 times. Frenzy charges can be consumed for additional repeats, which will be included in the build later. Premeditation increases Twister damage by 15%. Perpetual Charge allows frenzy charges to be used again if not removed. Ingenuity reduces barrage cooldown so it can be used for airy rotation. Glacial Lance is an optional skill that can be used if you don't always want to do the full Twister combo. Ice Bite, Execute, and Longshot all increase its damage. Elemental Sundering is also an optional skill, useful for finishing off frozen enemies. Its damage is increased with Pursuit, Concentrated Effect, Elemental Focus, and Close Combat. Moving on to the persistent buffs from Spirit Gems, your first 30 Spirit gained is used to activate Herod of Ice to help with clearing. Cold Infusion, Primal Armament, and Cold Penetration increase the explosion damage since 100% of physical damage is converted to cold. Magnified Effect increases the explosion coverage. Combat Frenzy should be activated as soon as you receive a level 8 uncut Spirit Gem, as it's extremely beneficial for frenzy charges. If you haven't gotten 60 total Spirit yet, prioritize Combat Frenzy over Herod of Ice. Frenzy charges are granted from freezing enemies and then consumed by barrage for additional repeats of Twister. Profusion is helpful for 50% chance to grant an additional frenzy charge. Once you obtain the final 40 Spirit reward, activate Wind Dancer to increase survivability. Socket Precision to increase accuracy rating, which is an important stat stacked in the build. Amazon is the recommended ascendancy for the Twister build due to its massive damage scalars. Critical Strike is the first node allocated. Once you finish your first trial, start obtaining accuracy in the passive tree and on gear to scale crit chance. Penetrate is the follow-up node from Critical Strike, but you should only allocate it if you have a spear with a high accuracy rating affix. Most likely, you'll be better off skipping Penetrate to get Predatory Instinct for more damage against rare and unique enemies. Next, obtain In for the Kill for movement speed and skill speed against those enemies. Let's break down the rest of the passive skill tree. In Act 1, path to Stalk and Leap, which grants 30% projectile damage after hitting with Whirling Slash. Also pick up these 2 extra small nodes for another 30% projectile damage activated by Whirling Slash. Remember to use just enough attribute nodes to fulfill any strength or intelligence requirements, and then allocate the rest as dexterity. Finish Act 1 by obtaining Precision Salvo, as it has 3 valuable stats for the build. In Act 2, continue pathing down to Maiming Strike for attack damage. It also applies Maim to reduce enemy evasion, which increases your critical strike chance with the Ascendancy node. We path down here quickly to obtain Dance with Death. Unequip your shield to gain 25% more skill speed to blast through the easier parts of the campaign. You'll want to unallocate Dance with Death to equip a shield once you have trouble surviving. Cruel difficulty is a good point to start wearing a shield again. Allocate the Acceleration Cluster for 16% increased skill speed and 3% movement speed. Finish Act 2 by traveling through the Spear Cluster to obtain a good amount of increased damage and attack speed up to Royal and Strike. Don't forget to complete your first trial of the Sekimas to ascend before leaving Act 2. In Act 3, start stacking accuracy rating to scale the Critical Strike Ascendancy node for Amazon. Respect the beginning of the tree by allocating 3 nodes with increased accuracy rating, and then remove 2 melee and projectile damage nodes. Go back down to the spear cluster for more accuracy and damage from precise point. Increase accuracy rating, critical hit chance, and attack speed by pathing up to Falcon Dive. Now that you have a decent crit chance, start stacking critical damage bonus with Javelin and the entire cooked cluster. Finish Act 3 by heading up to the Coming Calamity for damage increases. Clear your first ultimatum in the Temple of Chaos before leaving Act 3 to gain 2 more Ascendancy points. The rest of the tree is finished at the end of the campaign. All the nodes in the next 2 clusters are allocated to increase crit chance and crit damage. Increased evasion rating is finally gained by passing through to enhance reflexes. The 25 dex from proficiency grants 125 flat accuracy rating. Nearsighted provides a big boost to accuracy rating at close range. Try to stay at close range of bosses to deal maximum damage. If you still have skill points left during the campaign, obtain Falcon Technique to gain attack speed for stacking dex. This is the gear on my Twister Amazon after completing the campaign. The most important item is the spear, which determines the base damage of your skills. The top physical damage value is the highest priority. The spear's base type determines its starting damage value. I used a swift spear to finish the campaign, which has a level 51 requirement. At my current level of 65, I can upgrade the base type to a massive spear for more physical damage, but the swift spear comes with an extra implicit affix of increased projectile speed. This stat is highly beneficial for twisters because it causes them to travel further. The most important affix on the spear is the increased physical damage due to it being a local mod on the weapon, meaning it directly multiplies the base physical damage value at the top of the weapon. Added damage affixes on the weapon are also local mods, with added physical damage being the priority since it gets multiplied by the % increased physical damage affix. Other added damage like the cold damage is still valuable to a lesser degree. Increased attack speed on a weapon is another local mod that directly multiplies its attacks per second value, making it extremely effective in speeding up the skill rotation. Finally, crit chance and crit bonus are stacked for this Amazon build. A shield provides a massive amount of survivability, especially with a high block chance. Prioritize the local mod of increased block chance to increase the block chance to around 40%. Other common defensive stats to obtain on gear are maximum life, resistances, and evasion rating. For more damage output, look for accuracy rating, damage to attacks, crit chance, crit damage, and dexterity. I'll leave you with some extra gameplay footage of the Twister Amazon during the campaign. Be sure to check my written guide at PoE Vault for any updates to the build. If you learned something new in this video, you owe it to me to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, peace out and happy slaying.
the reactor. I can't give. I will succeed. Let's see you survive this. I cannot let my efforts be in vain. Ugh. Unexpected, but not critical. No!
You had your chance to kill me. Now it's my turn.
Requiem on high. I will take out your heart and savor its bite. My king nears.
Flying now, What that guy? Spirit breath.
Come for me.
Storm's coming.
I bear the burden for our future. Unleashed. I can't give up. I will succeed.
Face me like a man.
I will burn you alive. The destruction at Atsuater will be repaid 1,000-fold. Nothing will stand in my way! No! Do not fail me. Not now!